This week's video is a follow-up to my last one where we explored constructing and then deconstructing a painting, but this time we're adding a bit of a twist using cold wax in some unconventional ways. It's good that you can join me. Welcome back. It's good to have you along again. If you watched last week's video, you'll recognize some of the thinking behind this demonstration, but I want to push that idea a little further today. One of the things I continually introduced in the last week's video is how we begin with something very specific, something observed or recognizable, like that reference photo in the bottom right, and gradually allow the painting to become much more spontaneous. The reference kind of gives us a structure, but it doesn't necessarily have to dictate where the painting ends up. That's where this idea of construction and deconstruction becomes useful, if you recall from last week. We established the painting first, the large shapes, the value relationships, some suggestion of space and form. And once that framework is there, we can begin, if you want to call it disrupting it. I like that term. We can remove things, obscure them, scrape through some and rebuild others, and sometimes repeat that cycle several times throughout the painting. So last week I simplified that into essentially just two stages, if you recall. In this demonstration, however, I want to make that process a little bit more predictable than last week, where we basically relied on spontaneity a whole lot. So I'm beginning with a photograph, as I said in the bottom right. It's just a photo I took at the Montreal Botanical Gardens. So for the first few minutes, you were watching me establish the painting fairly quickly. I've sped this section up because the construction component itself isn't really the focus of today's lesson. I am again working with oil and cold wax at approximately a 50-50 mixture for this stage. And if cold wax is new to you, one of its great advantages is that it changes the physical character of the oil paint. It gives the paint body, it creates a more matte surface, and perhaps most importantly for what we're doing today, it responds beautifully to scraping, dragging, layering, and interruption. Once we get beyond that initial construction, as you'll see in a minute, I've left much more of the demonstration in real time. I want you to see the actual problem solving, not simply the highlights after everything has worked. Now let's get on with the real-time demo and me fumbling around with my tools, and I'll check in on you towards the end of this video. And as usual, if you have any questions, and I'm sure you'll have them, drop a comment or send me an email, as a lot of you have done. I'm always keen on hearing from like-minded individuals that enjoy painting, particularly this intuitive style. Okay, so it's been a couple of days for our base construction painting to have dried, and it's kind of tack dry. I can still feel the layers. There's some thick passages on here, which I left deliberately, and certainly some thinner passages down here. So my intention for today is to go through this deconstruction phase of this painting with new colors. So if you recall from last week's video, where we're very limited as to what colors we introduced, even in this deconstruction phase. Here we're doing things slightly different. I think I'll be less, if you want to call it, quote-unquote erratic, and maybe more direct with regards to how I apply these new colors, which are, again, based on what I felt this particular painting needed. So what we have here introduced are kind of the same broad family of colors with some ochres, yellow ochre, raw umber, titanium white, ivory black, but I've introduced a bit more of the Prussian blue here and a bit of cerulean blue to increase a chroma just slightly when I do this second layer and then reduction process. So the first step will be just to knock back, press into some of these impasto layers that you might see here in the foliage, because I don't know why. I think maybe I don't want it to disturb the second or subsequent final layer that I'm about to apply. So I'm just going to press down and knock back some of these sort of troughs that are sticking out And as you can see, it's not really disturbing the overall painting. If this was standard oils, even after a day or two, this would all be muddy after making these kind of marks. So I'm kind of thinking as far as this destruction phase, I will do very similar marks like last week where I'm pulling the spatula from top to bottom. Maybe I'll be a bit more selective, maybe not everywhere, but let's see how this is gonna go. And I think what I'm going to do here, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm kind of following certain contours of my underpainting or the drawing that I've already established, with the pond being a hierarchy component. Maybe I'll introduce this color down here, and then maybe this one somewhat selectively. But in doing so, I'm going to make sure I wipe my spatula. I don't want too much bleeding from one value into another. By the way, these were also pre-mixed beforehand with our friend here, Cold Wax, so that it's roughly the same ratio of 50-50 cold wax to oil. And as I say that, it looks like this one needs a little bit more wax. You can always feel from the feedback you get from the surface whether it's slick or whether it's sticking. The marks that I'm making are somewhat thick here, and again, that is somewhat deliberate as well, because I know that when I pull some of these things in a moment, these marks will certainly blend into one another and I'll remove a lot of this paint. But what I'll do now is turn off the camera and see how this reads to me. Maybe I'll adjust some of these shapes, or maybe not, we'll see. Okay, so I didn't change much. I'll see once I do the final touch-up and final embellishing or addition of paint whether I'll add more color, but for now I'm quite content with the way this is designed. It's following the same contours of the drawing, and unlike last week and some of the other demos that I've done on here, I'm going to come in with a different tool. I've used this previously on my channel. If you're a die-hard subscriber, you've probably seen this. This is something that I picked up at the designer store, and when you work with cold wax, you don't really have any set tools that you work with. You just find different things as you go and you incorporate them. This thing is some sort of a handle that's used for, I guess, mark making in design world, and it's got this very prickly astroturf-like part of it that you sort of scribe with. So I'm going to try to see if I can use it here and see what comes of it. As you can see, it's pulling a lot of the colors we applied, and I don't mind that. That's quite interesting. Although it's leaving some marks, so I don't necessarily mind that. And let me do that same thing over here. Very interesting. It's just creating these linear sort of patterns. It's revealing some of those underlying passages, but maybe not enough. So okay. Okay, what would a painting be without me using a spatula knife? So this is the reflected component, if you recall. In fact, very likely, this is being narrated real time. In fact, very likely I've got the finished painting somewhere, and maybe the reference as well. Just so you see, this is the reference, sorry, this is the reflected component of that part. So in keeping with the form of my reference, instead of scribing with that, maybe I'll just pull some of these marks down here to reflect those trees from above. And to give variety, I always say this, if you like a certain tool and how it's behaving, don't feel too obligated to continue using it. There's always room for variety, and so you're creating interest, like I'm doing right here. I'm breaking this horizontal line, which is reading too linear for me here. I'm introducing some of these colors up here, and this new tool for this painting is creating some marks that I like and others that I don't. Maybe in this section here, I can pull this entirely off like this. Do I like that? Let's leave it for now. And for this part down here, maybe I will leave it, or maybe I won't. Let's see if I can do something with this as well. What did I pick up here? A little lint piece. Normally when I make these videos, I come towards or at or close to the end of the painting, and then I show you the finished work, but there's usually a step in between which I don't really show because it's not really all that exciting to watch. And that's a step where I step back and I evaluate over a period of maybe hours, maybe days or so, just to see how everything is reading. And then I show you the finished work at the end. think what our painting's still missing is a bit more contrast. So I've mixed this ivory black with some base colors that I've already used to just give this thing a bit more structure. And because this is reading as some sort of a light coming through a forest, similar to our reference photo, I'm trying to see if I can create right here somewhere some darks. And again, as you can see here, we're picking up some of those troughs we've created with that comb tool that I call. And this dark color, which I have a lot of it on my palette knife, is only depositing or applying itself on those high key sort of marks that we left. It's supposed to introduce, as I said, interest. It's maybe reading as a tree, but its role is entirely to give this more of a value range, just so we can gauge the space a little bit better. You can certainly overdo it with this. And that's it. Pretty straightforward, right? As I move across the surface, you'll see all these linear marks, the impasto, oil, and cold wax lines that we created. What's interesting this week is how far the finished piece has moved from that initial construction while still holding on to the same underlying design and notan structure. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.